MetaQuest 3S, Samorost and Stardew Valley, version 1.6. This is Staying In. Before we start today's programme, we will be discussing Santa for a brief period. If you'd like to skip this section, specifically if you're listening with younger children, then please look to the show notes on your podcast app of choice to skip ahead to the next marker.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Let us begin.
Oh, it's just the tuna bus. That's the song.
It is. Statistically, it feels like it's just the tuna bus more often than not, in terms of when it is, it's me and you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's correct.
I think it is correct. And I wonder whether or not it says something about... Does it say something about us, or does it say something about the other two? The listener will have to come to draw their own conclusions on that one. How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm all good. I heard a great story the other day. Fantastic Christmas story.
Okay.
Now, this is where we enter strangely dodgy territory where we have to contend with the concept of belief.
Okay.
And the belief in one certain gentleman. I feel like we are believers.
Oh, I'm a believer.
We believe wholeheartedly in the magic of Christmas. Not everyone does.
Fine.
And that's fine, but...
Takes a world?
Yeah. But I heard the story over Christmas. Some friends of ours, they've got a child same age as my child, they're 4. And they have some next door neighbours who also have a 4-year-old child. And they were talking after Christmas, and they were arranging what's called a play date, where you get together and basically the mums and dads have coffees and allow their kids to play together.
Cool.
And they're arranging this play date and just going, oh, just to make sure your little one still believes, do they? It's like, what? Well, they're 4. Yep. I mean, I'm hoping to keep that going until they're at least 12.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why? What's happened? Well, unfortunately, so we don't have a chimney at home.
Okay.
So in order to bring the magic to life, one of the grandparents dressed up as Santa and broke into the broke into the house. And what happened was that one action caused enough trauma that they've had to, rightly or wrongly, tell their small child at the age of 4 that this is all made up. It's all just false in order to build back some mental fortitude.
Yeah, absolutely. They've wow, that's incredible.
So imagine you're lying in bed.
Yep. I can picture it now.
And you hear some rattling downstairs and you think, this is it. He's here.
He's here.
They're landing on the roof. And instead it's it's your grandpa.
Yeah. You creep downstairs expecting to see some elves. Instead you see, a Zimmer frame.
Yeah, absolutely. With a shoddy beard. The coat's caught on the top of the window where he's climbed in. Yeah,
Santa's effing and jeffing. Also, imagine what that 4-year-old's going to turn into at 18. Imagine the damage. just the like that. That's. Do you know what, Sam? That's how you make a goth.
Is it? How to make a goth in one very easy, simple step.
Oh, God.
Talking of Christmas, though, here's a little quiz that I got prepared for you.
Thanks.
What was the number one most used app on Christmas Day?
App?
What was the app that was most in use on Christmas Day?
Surely it's got to be WhatsApp, like people, or one of those sorts of things where people are like messaging each other, sending their, love across the universe.
But surely the people that you love are there, so you don't need to...
Oh, no, you're right. Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
Like, we all message each other, like, the barest of, like, platitudes and sentiments on the day. Like, happy Christmas, done, phone down.
Yeah.
Right, let's...
Yeah. You having a good one? Yeah, all right. I'm going to go and eat some more pies. Okay, well, maybe... so maybe it's not that then. Maybe... Oh, is it one of those, like, camera apps where, like, it changes your face and so you say, hey, Grandma, come on over here. Put down Santa and come on over here and show us... And I'll show you... Look, we'll put a little funny face on you.
You think so, wouldn't you? Or maybe, like, a dating website, or apparently I think Chris once got told from his estate agent that one of the most popular websites on Boxing Day, I think, is Rightmove. Yeah
because you've had your family round and you're thinking, how can I move very far away from
them? The number one app this Christmas was the Meta Horizon app.
Okay. Meta Horizon. What's that?
Yeah. So Meta Horizon is the app that you are forced to by the wonderful folks over at Meta if you were in receipt of a Meta Quest headset.
Oh, right. Okay, so it's like a VR headset thing.
Well, it's not. Anyone can sign up for Meta Horizon anytime, and Meta Horizon is that wonderful place which Zuckerberg tries to convince us all that we're going to be having meetings inside. And
oh, yeah. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, and holding big important press conferences while we've got big, massive plastic domes over our heads and all this kind of stuff. So Meta Horizons is essentially like, of the Meta social networks, essentially it's the fourth one. It's just a virtual social environment.
Yep.
But through that, it's how you register and set up your headset. It's how you buy apps and how you friend people on the MetaQuest. One of the reasons why I know this is that I was one of those people on Christmas Day downloading Meta Horizons and creating a lovely little avatar for me to wander in this brand new virtual world of Meta.
Okay. You hanging out with the Zuck? So you was it okay? So from hardware to software and to, I guess, like firmware, like the whole experience. I've heard the Meta headset is very good. Like, what was your takeaway from it? Getting it, like, because I'm sure that must have come as a bit of a surprise getting that. Yeah,
it was a massive surprise. Like, so I got the Meta Quest 3S.
Nice.
I was lucky enough to get the Meta Quest 3S. And, I've been intrigued by VR for a long, long time.
Yep.
And that's generally from my position as someone who really likes tech. What's in the middle of like an early adopter and a late adopter? Like, I consider you like... I think you're quite a late adopter.
Me?
Of tech.
Yeah.
And I'm quite a early adopter, but not like always straight out of the gate.
Yeah.
But so I don't know what kind of the middle ground is. Like a
trend follower. A sort of like capitalist sheep. That sort of thing. Do you mean that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Whereas, one might say that I was like some sort of backwards Luddite. That sort of thing.
A pariah.
Yeah.
So I've always been interested in VR, even though it's been one of those bits of tech which has always been kind of maligned from the sidelines. Like, you hear lots of stuff like, the tech's not ready. The games aren't supported. It's not really the future of things. A bit in the same way that people have felt about things like 3D.
AI, the blockchain. Yeah.
Crypto, etc., etc. So, I've always been intrigued, and I've always wanted, and at every opportunity, I've always interacted with VR. Like Dan's got a VR headset, and when me and Chris went down there, we played some Super Hots one time, and I've played there's a arcade club near me. Have I taken you?
Nope.
I took you to that arcade club, did I? Oh, okay,
Nope.
Well, next time you come up, you've got to come because it's 3 floors of arcade cabinets that are all free. You just pay for entry and then you can go on whatever you want.
Perfect.
And they've got a little VR section there, and obviously play things like Beat Saber and VR Rally, which is really good in a proper chair.
Yep.
So with a steering wheel, handbrake, gear stick, VR headset on, that was amazing.
Sounds great.
So getting the MetaQuest 3S, sort of that whole experience, out of the box, putting it on. The biggest faff is kind of getting all the meta stuff kind of on board and in, especially someone who's trying to sort of curtail a bit of their social media footprint. It kind of says, log on with Facebook, or you've got to log on with Instagram. You've got to log on through one of the meta portals, being Facebook or Instagram. But then you also create another social identity, which is the one that exists within Meta. So you're using one as kind of this is me, the human in real life, and then you've almost got the avatar itself has their own social presence. It's quite weird. It is really, really clunky. But luckily, other than buying games and friending people, you really don't have to engage with the app at all, or any of the digital sort of social marketplace stuff, which was my main worry about the MetaQuest, was how much that was going to be integral to the experience. A bit like, do you remember PlayStation Home?
Yeah.
How that whole ecosystem that Sony created had some really nice things in it, but in order to interact with it, you kind of had this forced social experience with other people.
Yeah, you had to queue up to play pool.
Yes, all that kind of stuff. But luckily, you don't have to do any of that. Once you're in and on board, the whole experience so far, and I've been using the headset for it'll be nearly a month now when this goes out.
Yeah,
has been amazing. I absolutely love it. I am just one of those people, luckily, where VR just works.
Okay.
I don't get motion sick. It doesn't really tire me out. There are some experiences which I value above others, which I'll get to, but I just really love that whole experience of playing in VR.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it, and I've been just rinsing it, and it's been brilliant.
Let's before we get to the actual games and the play experiences and all that sort of stuff, we talked about the hurdles of the meta profiles and all that sort of stuff. Sounds like once you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
So there's the play side of things. Before we talk about that stuff, is there anything that because obviously the big push for VR is all of this, go and hang out with the Zuck in the virtual space, and productivity and doing the sort of heavy rain-esque, moving things around, minority reporting, your Excel spreadsheet or whatever. Have you done any of that stuff outside of the games? Have you done any of the stuff that's non-games?
No.
Okay.
At the moment, I don't see where VR adds any value to those kinds of things.
Yeah.
There's a reason why people who enjoy playing PC games still use a mouse and keyboard. I've seen some VR demonstrations of people being able to cut and edit audio in VR.
That's cool.
So you physically use your hands to like pick up pieces and move them around, and that's more to do with like spatial placement. So you get like an audio file and you go, right, I want this piece of audio to be over here, so I'll drag it and physically drop it in the space and put it there, which is fine, but that's one small part of what can be a longer editing process. And the same with like interacting with my desktop. I'm not going to sit there for 8 hours and wear a VR headset or, you know, anything like that. So that kind of productivity stuff, like I think that I probably will dabble in it at some point, but at the moment it's been about...
It's about games. It's
been about the games, baby.
All right, tell me about games. Let's go. Like, what's the... I mean, we obviously know about the classics, so, you know, we don't need to talk about, like, Beat Saber or, you know, anything along those lines. What's been the game for you? What's been the game where you've just gone, oh, this is just it, man?
Strangely, Walkabout Mini Golf.
Okay. Tell me all about Walkabout Mini Golf, because I'm a big fan of a golf game.
Walkabout Mini Golf was released in 2020.
Okay.
Playing it in VR is just kind of exemplifies for me quite a lot of the things that I just enjoy about the VR experience.
Right.
So when I kind of say like it is the game that's been the most popular, I think that's mainly because it's the one thing where it feels like, right, this for me is what I love about VR. First of all, there's just a point where, unlike when I'm playing other games or having sort of a moment to myself, I guess, to like a bit of rest and recuperation,
sure,
away from work or whatever, there's something about VR about, right, clearing the space, clearing the room, doing the room scaling thing on the MetaQuest. Here is where I'm playing today.
Yep.
Which is fantastic. The technology for that is amazing. And putting on a headset and completely blocking out the outside world. It really feels like I am having an experience away from everything.
Yep.
And it's not quite meditative, but it is quite restorative in terms of, right, this is me now. I'm going to be having this experience. Unlike other gaming experiences where you have there's that temptation to second screen at times. Here, you just can't do it. And the VR golfing, obviously it's mini golf, so you are just putting.
Sure. And
it just manages to make it feel exceptionally tactile, to the point where sometimes I'm literally like bended knee on the ground.
I love it. Holding
a little like false club in the air, like trying to sort of gauge my way around the course, seeing what I'm going to be doing, and genuinely feeling like I'm having some sort of, you know, sporting-esque experience, which is completely different to how like everybody's golf feels, or Tiger Woods golf feels. Yeah. And you and me are quite similar in that we love playing golf games, virtual and in real life. And it's not real life golf, but it doesn't really feel like virtual golf either. It feels like a completely tactile experience. And for that reason, like, it feels ever the more satisfying when you get a hole in one, or you just scrape a par, or you get a really tough double bogey. But that's kind of that was the best of a bad situation, that was. And you sort of like slow hand clapping yourself in your living room.
Yeah.
And for me, that interaction with a game has been like incredible. You know, it is one of the reasons why I love board games so much, is you have this visual, tactile control over what you're doing, and it enhances. For me, it just really elevates what that experience is. And also, it's a joy to be stood up as well, playing games and feeling like you're moving and ambulating.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
So Walkabout Mini Golf has been great.
Yep.
When you buy a new MetaQuest at the moment. I think this is until April, is it? You get the new Batman Arkham game, Arkham Shadow, bundled with it, which is a big £30 AAA VR experience. And it is incredible. It's brilliant, exceptionally immersive, a really detailed Batman world. It pretty much is the Batman Arkham games, but in VR. You do the whole like hanging upside down from gargoyles and lynching bad people and like holding your wrist up to get a smoke bomb out and throwing it over the room and doing all that kind of stuff. But most of it is focused on the physicality of Batman, like the punching and putting combos together. And that's something that I've not really engaged with as much. Like I have not really found that as satisfying. For me, it's been about that sporting achievement with mini golf and then the puzzling part of it. So I've been playing I Expect You to Die, that series as well.
Okay.
I've been playing Expect You to Die 2. And is this a series that you're familiar with before? Probably not, because it's VR only.
Not massively, no.
I guess the way I would describe it is it's a basically short escape rooms, essentially.
Okay.
But in the same way, you've played Stop Talking or Everyone Explodes, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But in the same way, like that is done in terms of staging. So every single level, you're at a desk or you're in some sort of seated position. So there's no movement other than your head and your arms. Everything that you're doing and everything you're interacting with is at a desk. So what I do is I clear the room. I bring one of the tables through from the dining room. I sit in the middle of the room. I sit there and I have a little. Right, I'm going to play I Expect You to Die for half an hour. I'm going to do one of these puzzles, and then I'm going to go to bed or whatever. And again, like, it is not the best game ever, but there have been moments playing it where I've felt more engaged and more present as a player than I have in lots of other different like gaming experiences. Like there's this one time when I was playing it and I set off a trap by accident and these lasers were going to start booting up to kill me as a spy. I was like, oh no, these lasers are coming. And I was in an airplane at the time and I'd just been served dinner. So I had this silver conch. So I just picked that up off the floor and held it up, and it reflected the laser beam and blew it off the wall, and I saved my life. Now that is probably how you're meant to solve that particular puzzle, but in the moment, in this completely virtual world, like it felt that I just improvised that, and it felt like it had just come from me, and because I was fully in control. It wasn't like press X to deflect laser. It was I had to bend down, I had to pick it up, I had to hold it in the right place in order to do it.
And I guess it has that Wii Sports thing of, you know, Auntie Erica wants to play Wii Golf and hasn't played a video game since the NES. They ask, how do you swing the golf club? And all the kid has to say is, you swing the golf club, right?
Yeah.
And there is that, it sounds like what you're talking about there is like, you are doing the improvisation, but you're not even being told, swing the golf club. You're being told, well, do what you think you would do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And it's not a button prompt.
No.
It's well, how do I do that on the controller? We'll pick up the thing and do the thing. Right? And I think that feels quite magical. That feels quite special.
Yeah, so for me, it's been fantastic. I have had to upgrade the kit a little bit.
Okay.
Like out of the box, the MetaQuest 3 S, I can't speak to MetaQuest 3, is uncomfortable for a long period of time.
Okay.
Like, really uncomfortable. The strap's not nice. The visor isn't nice against your face. So I have had to spend a bit to upgrade the textile around the visor. So it comes with like this fabric edging, and I've basically got a silicone one, which also has these little like nose flaps, so it blocks the light that comes up from your nose.
Oh, that's cool.
And also I've got this really nice kiwi head strap, which like screws onto the back of your head. And it's also has this like padded sponge, which like distributes the weight evenly across the back of your head as well. But I feel like what you get for the price, it is an amazing bit of kit, and I've probably only had to spend another £80 in terms of upgrading like the physical side of things to make it more comfortable to play.
Yeah. I think the thing with VR is it does feel like it's getting into a space now where the technology is maturing enough to the point where it's getting cheap enough so that it is becoming a bit more consumer tech. I mean, obviously it depends which headset you get, but like it's becoming more and more, inexpensive in that way. The technology is getting mature to the point whereby you can do the wire-free stuff, which I think it was a huge problem for a lot of people. It certainly was for me. Like I've got a rabbit. Like they will chew through that wire. The room space stuff, the language of games in VR, like how we design for those things. Like having made a VR game myself, a prototype game before, like it is very different the way that you have to think about making games. And I think the other big thing is the maturity of those people who are making software for VR. And the reason I'm being a bit cagey around using the word software but not using the word video game is because I actually think everything that you described there that seems the most interesting thing about VR treats VR like a different medium than games, right? In the same way that whenever we play video games and they're trying to be movies, we find them boring. Whenever we read books, and they're trying to, emulate some other art form, some other medium, it gets really, really, like, I don't have much interest in the, these CRPG literary books where it's like, it's a video game, but in a book format. It's like, no. Like that, take advantage of the medium that you're in. And I think that the designers now for VR aren't trying to replicate traditional quote unquote 2D video games anymore. They're now trying to say, okay, well, if we've got this totally different medium, if we just assume it's a different medium entirely, and it's not a case of VR is going to kill consoles, because it just won't, because they're just not the same things.
No.
How do we make something that actually utilizes the medium in a way that you couldn't have this experience with a traditional video game, right? It sounds to me like the most boring parts of that Batman game are the bits in which it's a video game. The most exciting bits are the bits where you are the Batman. Yeah. Right? And that is something that virtual reality is better than movies or video games or books or comics or whatever it ends up being. That level of quote unquote immersion, that is as close as you are going to be so far in the mediums that we have available to us for being the Batman, right? Like looking through the cowl. Like that's as close as we're going to get at the moment. For me, we've talked about it before, like I love racing video games. There is a huge desire from my side of things to go full Willington, get a cockpit, get a wheel, get, pedals, and get a VR headset. Because again, racing is one of those things whereby, and again, it's why you see things like why Elite Dangerous is so popular in VR, why Eve Valkyrie was a big one early on, why Gran Turismo, why Wipeout, why all of those games have done really well with VR. It's because you're sat there in the cockpit doing the thing, and that is immersion. Sam, Stardew Valley sure is.
It's a good game, isn't it?
Sure is a hell of a game, Sam. I know we've talked about Stardew Valley before on the podcast, but I really feel like we need to talk about it again, and the reason is
okay.
So a little while ago, the creator of Stardew Valley, ConcernedApe, put out an update, and ConcernedApe's been working on. Has got other games. I think there's a game coming out that they're working on called Haunted Chocolatier, which I think has got quite a lot of hype, but they've kind of had to let that fall by the wayside, as far as I can tell, a little bit. They've been really focusing on more stuff for Stardew Valley, and they decided to put an update out for Stardew Valley, which is simply titled 1.6. And 1.6 is, for those not in the know, in video games and most software, what we do is we'll have like a 1.0 version, and traditionally what we mean by that is this is the full version, right? This is the first full release, first full public release, 1.0. So when you end up with things like 1.1, what you're essentially saying is this is the first big update from that original public out thing. So 1.6 is Stardew Valley, and we've got 1.6.11 or something like that now, but which are like minor revisions. But 1.6 is an insane level of additional material. Like, again, as somebody who works in that medium, an upsetting amount of additional material.
And this isn't paid for. This is completely if you own the game.
This is that Stardew Valley that you have paid once. Now that is either a $5 on Google Play, or I think it's like maybe a $10 on Steam. You know, it drops in sale every once in a while. You know, it's on basically everything now. That amount of money you paid once, you have not paid for any additional content. There must now be, there must be 500 hours of content now in this product. I mean, I'm sure there's probably even more than that. Stardew, I must now have like 300, maybe 400 hours in that thing across a bunch of different plays. And Alex and I decided to go into it for 1.6. We decided to go back and see what have they added, what have they changed, you know, thinking, well, there might be some nice new additions and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, I'm sure it's, you know, just bits and pieces, and we'll have some fun time with it because it's a nice chill out game that we play in co-op. We do couch co-op where we sit together and we play Stardew Valley on the same screen, and we sit together and we sit under the blanket in the winter and we have a nice time playing with the Stardew Valley game, like running. Basically, the role playing we're doing is she owns the farm and I'm the farm hand, where I basically have to just make. Well, you say, but it's actually just she says, "Could you make sure that I can get 20 pumpkins by the end of spring?" And I'm like, all right, like I can try and do that.
How does that work if one of you's like at the if one of you's somewhere else in the map and one of you's at the farm, basically, does it draw a line down the middle?
It's a split screen. It just starts split screen and never goes anywhere else. It's not like the Lego thing where...
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, where it does that clever split screen stuff. No, it's just split screen all the time. And so anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm doing the thing that I want to do, which is order and business and industry. And she's off making friends with all of the locals and, you know, doing all that sort of stuff. So anyway, we start this game up and we think, okay, well, we might have fun. No, we put dozens and dozens and dozens of hours into it over Christmas and New Year's, just exploring some of the new content. And we've barely scratched the surface. I mean, to put it into perspective, and I actually had to go and Google a list of the stuff that they've added into this.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask, because, like, as someone who's not, I can't remember the last time I picked up Stardew Valley. Like, I absolutely love it. I think it's a superb game, but like, I barely scratched the surface when I was getting. I never really felt like I barely scratched the surface. Like, I never finished the community center. So, do you think I'd be able to tell what's new or what's not?
Yes, absolutely. There's definitely new stuff in there because there's stuff like peppered throughout all of the things that you can do. So it's not just like new. So for example, they add in the big tree, and the big tree has it's a whole new quest line, and it has whole new upgrades and all that sort of stuff, and it's available to you, not immediately, but fairly early on. So it's a thing that you could go off book on. You could, rather than like just focus going down this one thing of filling out the museum or, killing all the enemies in the cave or whatever it ends up being, like you could just go down that route instead. They also pepper in through a whole bunch of new technology. So like there are new things for you to create based on new ingredients that have been peppered throughout the world. So for example, there's these new jelly, and you can use that to create things like, I think it's like called a dryer or a fish burner or something along those lines. And basically like it's a whole new way to make fish and mushrooms and other things like that worth even more money. And it's just integrated really nicely. So if you were to start now, you'd be like, I don't remember that. And it's probably because it was never there to begin with, right? So there's all of that stuff. There is a wealth of bug fixes, performance improvements, just quality of life things where you just go, oh, thank God, brilliant, thank you for fixing that. Or tiny little things that you'd have to really go out of your way to find were errors, but once you got there, you'd be like, no, that is a little bit annoying. Just lots of fixes around those lines. Like I say, tons of new dialogue, new quests, new everything. And like, even when I thought, oh, well, I'll probably like a little bit of it, and like, I'm sure it'll be a nice little update, but how much more stuff can there be? And then I started to find out, oh, well, actually, there's quite a lot of new stuff in here, but how much better can that really do? Like, how much more can it really, reinvigorate that as a product? I got a bit sniffy, but, put my producer hat on and just went, oh, well, I don't know why Eric continues to update this game. It immediately became the most played game on Steam Deck again. Like it was one of the most played games on Steam. It won, I think it was up for the Steam Award for Passion Project or Labor of Love, I think it was called, which is basically this award that Steam gives out, which is like they keep updating this, they keep doing more stuff, and the community responds really, really well. It breathed brand new life into this thing where it reminded everyone, I think, this is still a really good game. Like this is, and it's available on everything, right? Like, Christ, there's a Vita version. Like, so, there's all of these different, these things. And it just reminded me, and I think that this is really the thing that struck me. And I think this is a discussion point we're going to start to see more and more in more public spaces. It's definitely a discussion that's happening in biz dev spaces. If you go to gamesindustry.biz and these sorts of spaces, there's definitely rumblings at the moment about, because we're getting longer and longer and longer platform cycles, and because PC now is, we're moving away from this idea of oh, well, now that you've got upgraded to Windows 98, all those 95 games just do not work anymore. We're moving away from that massively. We're getting to a point whereby a game that's been out for, again, it got a Vita release, a game that's been out for a really long time can suddenly win a whole bunch of 2024 Game of the Year awards, right? We're getting to the point whereby all the attention is being sucked up into these mega hits because they caught something, they're brilliant, people really enjoyed them, and then it had a positive feedback loop of people then recommended them, so more people played them, so more people recommended them, and it just had this constant positive feedback loop to the point whereby I went looking for other games like this. And there are some, there are other ones, but every single time I've gone and tried to play one of those things, I always come back to Stardew Valley and go, yeah, but this is just the one, and more than that. And it's not just that thing of it's not that Super Mario World problem whereby this is just the one, but it was a one-off and that's it, and it's of its time and it has a finite amount. It's no, this is a game, this is the one, and it's still getting updates, significant updates, right? Like big chunks of content, in the same way that games like World of Warcraft and Guild Wars and those kinds of things get significant content updates. And it just made me, it was a really odd feeling over Christmas of like, this is going to be a huge problem in the future for video game developers at some point. Like, it's going to genuinely be an issue because there's only so much room for people's time, right? But on the other hand, as a consumer, I'm like, this is amazing. I paid a tenner for this, and I have. Yeah. I mean, we must be in the fractions of pennies per hour of entertainment now. Mm-hmm. Like, what a time to be alive for video games. The other thing that I've been playing, which is also amazing and is free, and I had no idea that it was this, and apparently it's been out for a few years now, and the actual original game is very old, but the re-release on Android was a few years ago now. Is a game called Samorost. This is by the same people who made Chuchel and Machinarium.
Oh, okay.
And 2 other Samorost games. But Samorost 1 is free.
Okay.
Like, legally just free, put out by the right people, put out by, these nice folks who made it. On Android, it's free, and it's short. It's like a 15 minute point and click-esque adventure, very casual adventure. That definitely is not denigrating it. Like, no. It's very straightforward, very easy to play. Beautiful art style, very odd, very kind of, you can see the proto-Chuchel stuff in it of like, I want to say like punky, non-conformist video game design that I think, that you get out of these smaller independent places coming out of parts of Europe. And like I say, I wanted to very quickly mention it on today's podcast because it's free, like just straight up, no ads, no nothing silly like that. Just go and get it, go play it, have fun for 10 or 15 minutes. What an amazing opportunity to give somebody that joy of playing Samorost. But it's also just a delight. Like, the gameplay's not going to win any awards for clever thinking or anything along those lines. But it's a nice little brain teaser in little places. But it's that visual style that team has really become known for, of like pushing the bounds of what art style looks like in certain kinds of video games. But yeah, Samorost 1 is, I had no idea. It just popped up in my Google Play thing. It was like, you realize this is free and you've not played it. And I was like, I haven't played Samorost. I love these folks' games. It's great. Like a lovely little story about just this lovely little guy, and he finds out something's going to crash into his little home, and he has to figure out a way of stopping that happening. And the way he does that is by working with or overcoming some of the strange wildlife that happens to inhabit the little areas that he visits.
Yeah, and the design is always great. All their games look fantastic. But Machinarium is one of my favourite soundtracks, and one of my favourite sort of point and click style games in a long time.
The ones that I've mentioned so far, Machinarium, Chuchel, Botanicula, those ones are I can definitely recommend those. Again, they're on the quote unquote pricey side. They're a $5. But they do have a couple of other ones, Happy Game and Pilgrims. I don't know about those ones. I think they are. I'm sure they're very, very good. I mean, they're certainly Happy Game is certainly rated extremely well. It's that. I think the thing about Samorost 1 is it kind of sets this like identity for what Amanita design would go into, and not from a like, this is how all of our games are going to look. It's more a case of, you're going to have a very visceral response to every single one of our games visually. You might not like it, but you're definitely going to have a response to it, right? Like, so I love how Machinarium looks. I love how Chuchel looks. I think Samorost looks weird and kind of cool, but it's not my favorite design. And I think, but Botanicula's okay. But you can't not have a response to those things. And it's just, it is one of those things where Samorost 1, I believe it was like a web game when it launched. It was from that era of like, people doing web dev and thinking, this is the future, no platforms, no nothing, just, making these things. And the fact that it's on your mobile phone now and you can go and play a little bit of history for free is just, absolutely gorgeous. Do you find, because Alex was talking to me, I was talking with Alex, my partner, about this. She said you, with video games, you always talk about beating them. And I said, and she said, what do you mean? So I said to her, well, what do you mean by that? Don't you beat video games? And she said, no, I play video games, and sometimes if there is an endpoint, I finish them, but more often than not, I am finished with them rather than finishing them. And she said, and I never use the phrase beat them, right? And we had a bit of a conversation about why I'm old and how basically video games from my youth were about beating them. But do you, because I definitely get into the mind space of, I come up with a list of games or comics or whatever, and I go, I want to finish all of these things. Like I'm definitely in the mind space of like, I want to do all of these things, even to the detriment whereby I get like halfway through a run of a series and I go, I'm really not enjoying myself, but I've said I'm going to finish it or beat it. So I'll just knuckle down and do it. Do you get into that mind space? Do you ever suffer from that?
Yes. To answer your question, the thought of beating something, and strangely, like it's something that I only have with video games. Like with books, TV, or film, if I'm not enjoying it, I will just check out. Like I'm quite disciplined. Like I'm not. I know you've got your 20-minute rule. That something doesn't grab you within 20 minutes, and you kind of check out.
I do that with video games. 20 minutes especially on Steam. I'm like, you've got 20 minutes. Do not mess around. But with books, I think there's something like the 100-page rule or things like that. So but I think, is that maybe because the barrier for entry is so low, or on the whole, books are not as expensive, or films, or like the reason, I mean, I guess, obviously I don't know it for you, but I guess the reason I do it for me is, for me, video games, I've been very fortunate in that because of sort of the sort of adult part of my life, pursuing games as like a thing, like games have been voluminous, and that's obviously an incredible position of privilege to be in, but because of that, because I've played so many games, and because I've played them since I was 3, like, within 20 minutes, I'm always like, I know how this goes. Like, I will know whether or not I want to play this anymore. Whereas, like, and so I'm happy to be like, so very often, and games is the only one where I won't sometimes, where I'll just be like, you got 20 minutes, that's it. And if I go beyond the 20 minutes, I'll probably complete it. But if I don't get to that 20 minutes, I'm like, I've seen this game 1,000 times. Like, I played this I played basically this game, but with worse graphics on the PS1, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas with books, I don't know, maybe I've got some terrible suspicion. Maybe there's something really snotty about me where, I feel like books are more, not worthy, because I don't think that's true, but like there's something about them whereby I will get halfway through, oh God, I got halfway through this incredibly dreary book. I will not mention its name because I just don't want to give it any airtime. But I got halfway through this book, and I can't read, so so I only do audiobooks. It was 12 and a half hours into a 25-hour audiobook. I got 12 and a half hours in, and I went, I really am not having a fun time. And then my immediate next thought was, damn, the next 12 and a half hours are going to be really boring.
Yeah.
Right? Not delete it.
Interesting.
So I can't do that. But with video games, if it goes past the 20-minute mark, I'm going to beat it. If it's before 20 minutes, or beat it as it were, complete it. But there's definitely that sense of, I don't know. Is it the dopamine hit for you, Sam? Is it the dopamine hit of like, and done? Like
there's definitely that, and then there's definitely the feeling of, right, that's all done. Now I'm primed for another thing, and I deserve that thing because I've waited for it. I've withheld myself from allowing to have that experience. So it's even more the sweeter, which is kind of why, like, I'm a big fan of Steam's summer, winter, autumn,
Same.
A Day with a Y on It sales. But they do kind of, it's kind of like, well, I'll have to pick that game up now, won't I? I'm just going to have to buy that now. And then
I'm not ready for it now.
But exactly, but I'm never really ready for it. And it just ends up everything piling up. And I think that for me, I think the reason why I find it easier to kind of check out of books and other media is probably because that media is a bit more accessible to me. Like, I can read books in bed. I can,
Sure.
TV, you can do it in a 20-30 minute hit, or, an hour just while you're eating tea. Video games tends to ask more of your time.
It's a commitment.
And therefore, when you're in it, and you're going to, want to make a good hour plus commitment to something, or what you're doing. Even more so with VR now, it's kind of like, well, I need to make sure that the living room is all accessible, and I need to make sure that there is a space that I can play in.
Here's a weird one. Do you feel that same compunction of, I don't know what we would call it, but like finishing board games? So like obviously board games are, you play them once and you've technically beaten them, in the same way that like you beat an arcade game like Street Fighter 2 by getting all the way to M. Bison and finishing him, right? But really you continue playing the game because you will never really beat the game, right? So I guess that's kind of the same with board games, unless you're playing something like a legacy game, right? But with the exception of legacy games, I don't think I've ever felt the compulsion to finish or like, I guess, master any of those games, like any board game that I have.
I think there's like solo games like Final Girl and Mage Knight and quite a lot of the Button Shy stuff.
There are campaign-based war games, I suppose.
Yeah, and they kind of encourage you to like, well, you've done this now, but can you do this even better? Can you perfect this as an experience? But even then, that's not really, I've never really felt like that is beating it, because essentially the only person getting in the way of that success is me. Like, the puzzle is the same, it's all about how I execute it, rather than I feel like, as you said, being people of a certain age where games were all about, to complete this game, you have got to beat this person. You have got to, there is a physical sort of challenge.
Do it within 3 lives.
Do it within 3 lives, and all that kind of stuff. And some board games do replicate that experience, but maybe it's the tactility of it. Maybe it's the sitting down at your kitchen table, moving little meeples around. It doesn't feel as like you're beating something. You're more just kind of maximizing your enjoyment out of it. That's the way I've always, especially like solo play.
I guess the end of them is really just the moment when they join the great big secondhand charity shop in the sky, right? Like, that's the moment where we say, yeah, I'm done with that.
Yeah,
right? Like, when it comes to board games. Yeah.
And you kind of realise this isn't really getting played that much, and it's kind of,
I'm done.
Yeah.
And
maybe that's part of it. I mean, maybe that is, when it comes down to video games, the fact that there is a lack of, I mean, you're maybe a bit of the outlier here, but in terms of my collection, it isn't as physical as it used to be. Like I have about 5 or 6 physical things. I open the cupboard and I see at them and go, oh, maybe I should play those sometime. Same with my board games, you know, I'll walk around and be like, oh yeah, I should play that again. I'll get that off the shelf. And I'll do it. Same with my books. Like they're all, you know, there and present. And that feeling of, right, I've done with this now, or I haven't really played that in a long while, so I'm going to give that to CEX, or I'm going to give that to the charity shop, or sell it
out of my house
at Aircon or whatever. That feeling that there's that cathartic moment, rather than with digital games, and quite a lot of my digital library, it's kind of like, right, these are all the things I've got to scroll past in Steam to get to the one thing that I want to play right now. And it's like, these are all things I'm neglecting, and I can never give up. I can never get rid of. I can never sort of have experienced that catharsis with. And partly that's my fault for getting a Humble Bundle key and redeeming them all immediately. But you know,
I'm going, I'll definitely play these. This is such a good
play that.
£8? I'll definitely play these. Well, talking about all that good stuff, and looking forward to the rest of the year then. Early heads up to everybody listening. Hello, everyone listening. We're going to be going to AirCon. If you're going to AirCon, we're going to AirCon. We're organising travel. We're organising all that sort of stuff. So we're going up to AirCon. We'll leave if I remember, I'll put a link up in the show notes as well. So if you're going to AirCon, if you're planning on attending, let us know. If you want to know more about it, drop us and whether or not we recommend it. We've got podcasts where we've talked about that. Drop us an email, and we'll talk to you about it as well. If you fancy catching up there. But yeah, we're going to do AirCon this year. That's the major one we're doing this year.
All 4 of us are going to AirCon this year.
All 4 of us are going to that one. I'm doing Salute.
What's that?
Salute is it's the war game event.
Okay.
So I didn't tell any of you about it because I thought I don't think the 3 of you. I mean, you are the outlier. You might go along as a sort of like experiment. Yeah. But that one's in London. But I don't think there's as much chance Dan will come along to that one. But AirCon Salute. We're doing this. We're doing in various different ways this year. But yeah, so if you are planning on going along, let us know, and we'll high five.
Absolutely.
We'll give you a sticker because we've got stickers that we need to get rid of.
Yeah, talking of catharsis. Yeah, that would be brilliant. I'm really looking, because it's all 4 of us for the first time. It's our 4th year going, I think.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, just absolutely cannot wait for AirCon. Always fun and enjoyable. It's been a bit quiet because we're kind of still coming out of winter Christmas hibernation on the Instagram feed, but do check out at Staying In Pod on there.
Yep.
Also, if you check the show notes, you can see links to Spotify where Chris puts up some interesting beats, melodies, rhythms, songs, music tracks.
DJ Darby Horn. DJ Darby Horn.
He's in the shop cooking up sick beats.
Sick board game beats.
Sick board game beats. So if there's anything that we've talked about on the show or shows in the past with a soundtrack, then he will usually stick up one of those tracks on one of those Spotify playlists.
And BGG, Steam, Curator, we've got all that stuff. We update all of those with all the stuff that we've been talking about. So if you ever want to go back and have a look at any of that stuff, you can.
Absolutely.
That's probably about it, really, isn't it? How did we decide we were going to sign
I can't remember. Or wasn't it trousers optional?
It was.
Oh, yes, I think it was. Trousers are optional. AirCon. 2025. As always, trousers optional.
I think that's where we leave it, Sam.
Thank you.